Okay, perfect. You heard that go through as well, right? For the recording? Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Just wanted to start by saying thank you for carving out time out of your busy schedules. I know it's the end of the year here and everything gets quite busy. So, yeah, thank you for attending this mnemonic webinar. My name is Lex Van Nugent, and I work for the customer success cell here at Mnemonic. I am joined by my associate, Yura Kovalenko, who is our AI implementation expert. Today's webinar is to provide you with some insight into our newest exciting feature, the Mnemonic Regulatory Chatbot. We've enabled the Q&A feature within Zoom here, so that's going to be located in the bottom navigation bar of the application. Feel free to ask any questions you may have during this presentation, and we'll make sure to take some time to answer them at the end of the presentation. I'm also going to be enabling a quick poll here in just a second. If you could all take a brief moment sometime throughout the presentation here to answer it before you leave, that'd be greatly appreciated. Let me get that going right now. Awesome. All right, so that is set up there. All right, so without further ado, let's begin. If you could switch the slide there, please. Awesome. So first off, who are we? For those who are less familiar with Mnemonic, we are a global standards and regulatory compliance software solution. Founded in 2008, we are headquartered in Montreal with around 50 staff in offices in California, Calgary, Toronto, and Shanghai. I myself am located in Calgary, Alberta. We have a multitude of partners in Europe, the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa. Mnemonic has serviced over 800 happy customers with a focus on companies of around 500 to 30,000 staff with multiple working locations. You can see some of our customers there in the graphic on the right. Moving along here. So, what does it mean when I say we are a global standards and regulatory compliance software solution? Well, in a nutshell, we are able to provide customers with an integrated compliance management program that aids in managing their organization's obligations. So these obligations can pertain to regulated areas such as quality, environment, safety, privacy, human resources, and more. At a high level, our software helps you to identify applicable regulations and standards, extract obligations from these documents, link various risks and controls to these obligations, create actions to stay in compliance, and the ability to conduct internal audits to ensure continual improvement. We're going to move on now to the agenda of the webinar. So getting back to the main subject of what this webinar is about, in order to help our customers reach their compliance goals, we are constantly on the hunt to improve our software. One of the most exciting features we've been working on is our AI regulatory chatbot. I'll hand things over to my associate Yura to explain the more technical aspects of AI and this project. And once again, if you have any questions, please send them to us using the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screens. All right, off to you.
Yep. Thank you, Lex, for a great introduction. Hello, everyone, again. So today we will briefly talk about Mnemonic and our key AI and automation streams. After that, we will transition to the chatbot and starting from the general idea behind our solution and how we actually implement it. And we will finish by showing you the use cases with demonstration of the product, followed by our further plans and Q&A session. So yeah, we can start from like general streams where Mnemonic invests right now. It's automation. Here we're talking about mostly internal tools used by our team of regulatory analysts to make sure we identify and process all updates swiftly and efficiently. Where possible, we use solutions offered by various governments, platforms such as API or other automatic access to their databases. Unfortunately, this is not like the case with many jurisdictions. So we have to be more creative, but luckily and importantly, our team of experienced regulatory analysts is always here to process all the data. So it was the first stream. The second stream is classification. So we have a CLCO, or closed level compliance obligation module, where you have access to document text parsed into separate clauses. And what we did, we trained the machine learning model with data that was prepared by our regulatory analyst to classify these clauses into four categories with ultimate goal to identify your requirements and help you um, to manage them easily on our platform. So, and we continue to work on the classification stream and improve our model, expand our coverage of the machine learning models that we are using. The next stream is summarization. So we are using generative AI to prepare short and concise summaries of documents that we have in our database. The summaries are focused on the document's applicability and key requirements. Currently, most of the documents added to the database are summarized by AI. So, and the last stream, and of course, the main topic of our webinar today is the chatbot. So I will slowly move to the next section of our webinar, which is why and how we actually implement the chatbot. And yeah, let's start with question and with answering the question why. So the idea behind the chatbot is rather simple. At Mnemonic, we have a large database of documents, and most importantly, these are up-to-date documents. And generally, all Mnemonic business is centered around the idea of facilitating usage and management of these documents. And given this, generative AI provides an excellent opportunity to streamline the use of Mnemonic's database by basically allowing you to use your natural language to interact with our database with the data. And important point here to note is, as you see on the slide, I did here that we use not only AI, but a lot of if-else statements and other technology. Why it's important that because even with the great power of generative AI, you need to know how to use it to get good results. So in our practice, it still takes a lot of time and effort to make it work properly and to actually make it useful. And now, yeah, now before switching to next slide, I want to also to talk about our competitive advantages of our solution before like other generative AI solutions like ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Claude, for example. We are fully aware about the situation on the market and about the state of affairs, and understand that it is challenging to compete with large companies like those that I mentioned. But our key advantage at Mnemonic is our data. And the point is like the companies like ChatGPT, OpenAI, I mean, and Anthropic, which also produces model Claude, they usually use the data for training the model, which has a certain cutoff date. Let's say they train the model with the data up to November 2023, something like that, and so you never know if a specific document that you are interested about is included in their training data set, and if they will be able to retrieve the document when you ask the question. And this leads to like the frequent cases of hallucinations. Hallucinations is basically when the model gives you an answer which is seems plausible, but actually is not correct or incomplete. And right now, yeah, these companies, they are also investing in some connecting basically their chatbots to internet, where you can do it's like sort of Google search with AI, but this is still far away from being perfect with respect to regulatory data, because you need to be very selective about the sources that you want to use, a specific I don't know, version of the act or regulation that you need to refer to retrieve the data. And especially this is complicated with the data that is not easily accessible. In many jurisdictions, it's quite challenging to get the data that actually is up to date and relevant. So what we do at Mnemonic is that we connect the chatbot to our database. Thus, we are ensuring that the data is correct and up to date. And we do the updates of our chatbot database at right now on a weekly basis. So we keep the database up to date. And while in solutions, like I mentioned in ChatGPT, for example, you cannot be sure about these points. Moreover, we also offer a secure environment where you can be calm about your data being used to train the AI. So the data that goes into our chatbot, it is not used by large companies and model providers for training. This is ensured by the infrastructure and the logic of our solutions that I will talk about on the next slide. So we also planning to allow you to add your own internal documents to the chatbot, where you can combine them also with publicly available acts and regulations, and get most of the AI in our chatbot. So next slide is actually how we implement. I know this slide can be a bit technical, but the goal is to give you like a general idea of how it works. So you can take the best of the chatbot given its architecture. And generally speaking, we are using a so-called retrieval augmented generation technique, or RAG. It can be explained by like next by following several stages. The first one is probably the most crucial, like one of the two that are most crucial. One is the data ingestion. So as I said, to ensure that the chatbot interacts with actual documents, with actual up-to-date and accurate information, we prepare the data based on the sources and specifics of each jurisdiction and ingest it to a separate chatbot database. And as I mentioned earlier, we also update the data on a weekly basis to make sure you use the latest regulatory texts. So after this stage is completed and on a weekly basis updated, we come to the next stage, which is user input stage. So here, customer goes to our chatbot and ask a question like, I don't know, I want to start producing something like maple syrup in Quebec. Can you help me? Right? And this question then initiates the third stage, which is retrieval stage. And this stage is also one of the most important ones. And here we need to make sure that the AI has the relevant information to base its answers on. Specifically, based on your question, we use a hybrid contextual and keyword search on full text of the documents to find the most relevant documents, retrieve them, and add to your question so it can be passed to AI to generate the response. Very important thing to understand about this is that we retrieve usually up to 10 on average most relevant documents that, for example, you asked about some producing something. So based on this topic, the chatbot will look in the database and retrieve up to 10 documents. And This limit comes from the capabilities of AI. In our practice, if you overfeed the AI with data, it will not perform good. So let's say it will be just lost in data. So we need to be very cautious with amount of data that we pass to AI. Therefore, the conclusion for the user is that while you can expect that the chatbot will retrieve you like key documents related to a question, it won't be all the documents. But at the same time, you are free to make your questions more specific, to get more information or more specific information about the topics you are interested in. At the third stage, just to summarize, um, we retrieved the most relevant documents relevant to your question, and then we pass your question and the documents to large language model, to AI. We use Claude. It's a model provided by Anthropic. So based on our tests and generally on the market, it's one of the best models, especially when it comes to processing regulatory data or legal text. The model generates an answer based on your question and the documents that are added with some metadata. Um, yeah, and you receive at the end the answer like this. We will for sure go to the chatbot and I will show you how it happens in practice, but yeah, this is how it generally works. And one important point about all this infrastructure is that, as you see, it is based on AWS or Amazon Cloud. This includes AI model as well. So why is this important? It's because this setup that we use guarantees that your data is not being used by AI companies. So behind the Claude model, there is a company called Anthropic. And if you, for example, go to their website and use their chatbot directly, most likely they will use your data to train the model, but it's not the case here when we use it through specific service on AWS and Amazon, which is called Amazon Bedrock. So we ensure that all data stays within our infrastructure on AWS. So, and the last stage of this process, which is not actually mentioned here on the slide, is the evaluation stage. It's also a very important stage because it's generally recognized that it's quite challenging to assess these models and solutions like this because you need to be a subject matter in the relevant field to say, okay, this answer is good or not based on the question. And the model we adopted is that we engage our customers, also our partners, subject matter experts, and also we are working with a couple of standard development organizations to evaluate the chatbot and improve it. So this model of evaluation and assessment of the solution proved to be quite efficient. We identified several points where we can improve the chatbot based on the feedback that we received, and we are some of them were already implemented, and we are working on some of them right now. This is it about like general logic and how we implement the solution. So now we can go actually to the use cases and to the demonstration of the chatbot in Mnemonic app. So to start with the use cases, the most important thing before actually starting with the use cases is to understand that this is AI, so artificial intelligence. And while it is an impressive and powerful tool, it is still a tool. And this means that it is designed to simplify or accelerate your work, but not to replace you as a decision maker. So in any case, it's you who are ultimately responsible for the decisions you make, whether with AI or without AI's help. So you can consider it as a new, very powerful, very smart, but still a tool. And having said that, overall, there might be quite a lot of use cases. Some of them you can see here on the slide. It's basically only your imagination that is the limit. But broadly speaking, we can divide them into two groups. So the first one is information discovery, and the second one is information interpretation. So within the first group, um, you search for the information, and the chatbot helps you to do it in a very efficient way. And in my opinion, it's where the chatbot is really, really good. For example, you need to find potentially applicable documents to your situation, or you need to find some specific requirements. So this is a really good tool for this purpose. The second group is information interpretation. So here the things get a bit more tricky because to make a correct interpretation, you quite often need to go through some sort of a process flow or a decision tree, which is not something that AI is always good at this point of time, but you still can use it for these purposes. But overall, you need to be a bit more cautious about the results. And but having said that, we need to keep in mind that the technology does not stay still and it is improving every day. So we certainly expect that AI will get better in this category of use as well. So yeah, let's go basically to the chatbot interface, and I will go how it works in practice. So here on Mnemonic app, there is a button at the top of the page, regulatory chat. And you can click on it, and in a couple of seconds, you will be redirected to the chatbot interface. And the first thing you need to do here, I will maybe make it a bit larger, well, is to select the regulatory source that you want to chat about. You can select either one, for example, you can chat about Alberta documents, but you can also, if you want to chat simultaneously about Alberta and Canadian federal acts and regulations and other data, you can select both of them, or even more, you can also include Quebec. But important thing to note, it's that it is better to limit the search for the chatbot. So like this way, like when you select, for example, Canada and Alberta, the chatbot knowledge base will include like around, I don't know, 3,000 documents or something like that, which is quite a lot. But, and it will do the search and of the relevant documents based on all the 3,000 documents. But when you limit the search, for example, only to Alberta, it will search only, I don't know, Alberta documents that we have for Alberta, which is probably 1,000 or 2,000 documents. So it will be easier for the chatbot to find the relevant information. So the answers will be more precise and accurate. Uh, well, so, and when you selected a regulatory source, in this case, Alberta, we have also some additional filters. You can see like some explanations, what is included in them, but overall, it's some, for Alberta, for example, here, it's binding documents and some guideline nature documents. So just to test it, we can select binding documents, for example. And what you can see here is by default, we select all documents that we have in our database. And but you also free to go here and find and chat only about some specific like one document or whatever the number of documents that you want. You can chat about some specific documents. You can search here. For example, I don't know, if you are interested in some oil and gas regulations or acts, you can also do the search. But for the purposes of this demonstration, let's just select everything and go and ask a question. Like, so we when we landed like on this page, we selected what we want to chat about, and then we have this main panel where you can either like type your question directly, and or you can click on one of the suggested prompts just to initiate the conversation. So let's click about like finding some documents that are relevant. Here we have a generalized prompt that will start the conversation, and let's put here a question. So the question is, identify key documents relevant to the transportation of hazardous goods in Alberta and provide a list of documents and their short summary in a table. So we send this question and wait in a couple of seconds while all this process that I showed you happening. We are analyzing your question, we are finding the documents, we are retrieving them, and we are using LLM to generate actually the response. And you can see that, yeah, the chatbot retrieved these documents, provided their summary, and also you can see like the links to the documents that you can go here and, for example, to verify actually, or to consult the documents in full, or to verify the chatbot responses, something like that. So, and as I said, we can also select not only Alberta, because in most cases, if you are working in Canada with Canadian laws and regulations and compliance, you need to take into account both federal legislation and provincial one. So you can select also Canada, for example, here. And here we have the filters for Canada, and we can also select here X and regulations and continue the conversation and ask the chatbot a question like, and what about the federal level, right? And let's see what the chatbot will answer. So yes, says certainly, and responds with some acts, regulations, and relevant documents on the federal level as well. So this is the first use case when you are basically finding some documents relevant to some topic. Let's click on restart the chat, and we can explore like actually the second use case, which is locating a specific provision. For this, I will use European Union as an example, and I will select regulations and directive types of documents. And we can ask, yeah, we can initiate the conversation by just pressing the suggested prompt. And we can ask after that a question related to AI. Well, so my question will be, provide a definition of a high-risk AI application. So, and the chatbot again goes through all this architecture and retrieves the document, finds the document which is the most relevant to this topic is European Union Artificial Intelligence Act. It's a recent piece of legislation that was adopted on European level. And yeah, it will provide you the definition and the source, so you can go ahead and consult it yourself. You can also, because as you see right now, it provided you with a response that is not like a like quotation or citation from the document, but you can ask to provide a citation, and it will give you like a specific quote with document precise text. So, and another the third one, probably the third use case, which is also quite impressive, and it was discovered with the help of one of our subject matter experts. So the idea behind that is that, for example, you are doing some kind of inspection or audit, and you notice that something is wrong, but you don't actually like remember exactly the provision that regulates the matter. Well, you can ask the chatbot and it will help you. All you need is basically to describe what is your observation. And yeah, so let's try it in Quebec, for example. We can, yeah, basically ask this third option, which is draft workplace audit finding or something like that. And yeah, the chatbot will respond to you that you can provide your observation, location, equipment related, and so on. But we will do it in a like more simple way, I guess. We will say that just no first aid kit at the construction site, and we also provide the answer, ask it to provide the answer in the table format just for so it is easy to read and understand. Well, and we send this question to the chatbot, and what we see here that the chatbot kind of helps you to draft first of all your finding, and also it locates the relevant requirement, which is some section 8 of the first aid minimum standards regulation with some quote from it. And well, basically this is the use case, which seems to be very impressive because you are even not asking about like some specific regulation. It just based on your context identifies what is the most relevant to this situation. Well, to conclude the demo part, it is important for us to receive your feedback, and whether positive or negative, it really helps us to evaluate and improve the system. And to do this, you can just click here. There are like two buttons, thumb up, thumb down, and uh, you can click on this, then you can add optionally your text feedback, and then you click on submit, and we receive your feedback, and hopefully it will help us to improve the solution. So also, just a quick note, because we are limited with time on webinar, we have here like a link to a document that explains you how to use the chatbot. So with all like this functionality about regulatory sources, filters, and so on. So you can go ahead and consult it if you have any questions about this. And for sure, you're are very welcome to reach out to us and ask any questions that you might have about the chatbot. And well, this is about the demo part. And please leave any questions that you want to try in the chatbot. We can do this in our Q&A session. So we will come back to the chatbot and try them. Yeah. So I will go back to the presentation, and we almost finished the presentation actually. And here we will talk a bit about our further plans. So one again important thing to understand is that the solution that we showed you today is still in beta version. So we are working every day on its improvement, and it's not something that will be in the same state as it was shown today. And even in the coming weeks, you will see that we are going to release a new feature with chat history implementation. So basically, you will be able to resume your chats that you had in past, and you will be able to manage them. Like, for example, you will be able to delete them from our databases and from your interface. So this will be added soon. We will also implement certain accuracy improvements for questions without many contexts. So for example, right now we identified with our customers' feedback that, for example, if you ask a question without the context, like for example, what is stated in Article 5 of the Act, and you do not actually specify what it is about, it can be quite challenging for the chatbot to retrieve this information. But we know like the solution that will help us, and we are already testing it, and we will be able to respond to questions like this also accurately. So these are two, like probably the most two improvements that we will publish quite recently, not quite recently, quite soon. And Further, we also plan to do a lot of other improvements. It's like processing images, because right now we are working mostly with text. So we will be able to process some PDFs with, for example, diagrams, with flowcharts, and so on. And our AI chatbot will be able to understand all that information. Also, we will be expanding our coverage. Well, currently we are also exploring how to implement the chatbot for Chinese jurisdictions, and we will also continue to cover Canadian and US content. Well, and Also, one important stream that we are working on is a cooperation with a couple of standard development organizations. And the point is to have this as a new product and engage standard development organizations to um, allow us to use their standards and put them in our system. It will be for sure not for free, because of the nature of the standards development organizations. Their standards are copyrighted material, but this is something that we are working on actively right now. We are evaluating the system with experts from these organizations. So hopefully it will be also available soon for certain types of standards. Also, yeah, just one important point that we have for some probably more further plans is that right now the chatbot does not contain versions of the documents. So when we update the chatbot database, we just replace the last version of the document with the most recent one. And so if you ask a question, what was changed in the document during like the last revision, most likely the chatbot will not be able to respond to you accurately to this question, but we have certain ideas around that. And um, probably after we will do some changes that I mentioned before, we will also try to experiment and implement this feature as well. Well, all this concludes our presentation part today, and we will move to the Q&A part.
Perfect. All right, well, thanks for the deep dive there, Yura. Like he mentioned, we have reserved this time at the end to answer any questions that you might have. I can see here in the Q&A that we do have a couple questions. I'll start off with this top one here. This is from an anonymous attendee, but they had asked, how do you ensure that Claude only utilizes the regulatory documents provided by Mnemonic and not similar, possibly incorrect documents that Claude has been trained on?
Well, it's a very good question. And Overall, we right now we're testing this based on prompt engineering, and overall we received quite good results. We had to spend like a lot of time, to be honest, to get to this point where Claude doesn't actually take the information from its training dataset. But overall, what we see, probably in 95% of cases, even more, it only generates the answers, only the data that we provide and retrieve from our database. We also plan to continue improving this by probably trying to fine tune the model, but it's another step which is probably will be a bit more further in our plans.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Hopefully that provides some clarity to that question there. We have another question here, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, from Raymond. Thank you very much for the kind words about the presentation. His question here relates to the changing words in the context of regulatory data. Regulations and standards are the result of considerable effort to ensure precise word choice. AI can generate summaries and rephrase text, potentially altering its intended meaning and, in some cases, legal consequences. This can introduce regulatory uncertainty. How does Mnemonic address this risk in its AI-driven approach? What guardrails have you put in place?
First of all, everybody here understands that it's AI, and I want to be fully, and we want to be fully transparent with you that even under our terms and conditions with company that provides large language model, we are obliged to tell all our users that it's AI and you need to verify the responses and so on. So we are very explicit about this. It's the first thing. The second, that we are also implementing and that we spent hours and days and months of testing on this is how to say, to channel like the AI, how it processes the information. Overall, we are trying to refrain it from very broad interpretation, but yeah, basically, as I explained during the presentation, we need to take into account that it is very good for information discovery, where you can find information and then basically use yourself to process it and interpret it. But yeah, of course, you can use it for interpretation, for summarization, and for other purposes. But as I said during the presentation, you should be more careful about and more cautious about this just to avoid these risks that you mentioned. This is a very good question. And honestly, yeah, it's one of the things that we are currently working on and trying to see um, how we can mitigate this risk even more.
Great. So we have another question here as well. This is from Star. They said here that the main reason I use mnemonic is to do gap assessments between old and current revisions, but many times a red line of changes is not provided. So I've been using ChatGPT and Bard to extract what the changes were, but sometimes they are quite inaccurate or incomplete. How can the chat AI or mnemonic do better with this important need? Before you start on this, Yura, I did want to speak on this a little bit because I know that you had touched on it, but within the software itself of mnemonic, if you have the clause level module, if that clause is being tracked and it's been updated, you will actually get a red line comparison about what has been changed within the application. So if you don't have the clause level, that might be the reason why you're seeing just a general document change. In terms of the other section of that question, I'll hand it back over to you, Yura.
Okay, thank you, Alex. So overall, about Redline, I can tell you a bit of insight because I'm also a bit involved in the project of improving our Redline service and actually implementing it in a stable way for regulations to cover most of them. And um, basically, uh, we expect that soon it will be available. It will be available gradually, like an improved Redline feature where you can do Redline not only on, as Lex mentioned, on close level documents, but on most of the documents that we have in our database. The challenging point here is that sometimes for some jurisdictions, it's challenging to get the full text. So it also depends on the sources provided by governments and issuers of the documents. But overall, this is something that we are working on as well. So the red line feature will be available soon. And why I actually am involved in this as well, because it's an interesting topic to discover for use of AI. And based on our tests that we did, it's still, as you correctly mentioned in your question, a challenging task for AI to do this red line, how to say, function. Uh, because of the nature of the task. In most cases, you can receive very good results if you, for example, pass to the AI like some specific section that was changed, and for example, it is not longer than one page or something like that. So it's a short section. It will give you more precise results. But in real life, when we have some revision and of the document or amendments or new version, it's you can have changes that are spread all over the document, and you need to analyze all of them. And AI is not like really good in analyzing all these tiny details in large information. As I said, even in our chatbot, we had to take this into account when we are retrieving the documents to make sure that we have a balanced amount of data that we are providing to ensure accurate results. So overall, we are looking into this within the implementation of the red line, like traditional red line. Uh, we have certain ideas around that, but we will have to test it and see how it will actually perform. Of course, as I said also earlier, we expect that AI will be getting better at tasks and in many tasks and at this task as well. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, and so I mean that's a great question, and luckily that's a very positive answer for the question, which is yeah, we have some sort of red line currently, and we are looking into implementing a red line feature into the AI chatbot, and then improving on what we already have. So that is something that we are actively working towards. Thank you very much for that question. We have another question here by another anonymous attendee, which is, does your database include proposed and enacted regulatory requirements in the US?
Well, in US, we currently cover only certain parts of the CFR, and also we have the FDA guidance documents, almost 2,000 of them, I guess. So we just started with this set of most probably popular documents, but yeah, at this point we are not offering any other content such as proposed documents or something similar.
Great. So we have another question here, which is from another anonymous attendee, but how do we access the module you just presented? Is it available now? If the module we presented is in the chatbot demonstration there. As part of this little poll that we're running here, it's to let us know too who is interested in actually testing this chatbot if they're not a mnemonic customer. For our mnemonic customers here, that's going to be available for you within your account. Yura had showed there, it's going to be right on that top navigation bar to the top right. That's called Reg Chat and in brackets beta. For anybody who's not currently a mnemonic customer and wants to test out the regulatory chatbot, make sure in the poll to let us know that you are interested in us following up, and then we can reach out and kind of help get you set up and explain to you a little bit more about what the chatbot can do for you and allow some testing there. So, Yura, do you think I missed anything with that that answer there?
Yeah, yeah, it's all correct. Like, so basically, if you already have an account, you should have access here by clicking the button here. So I'm showing right now on the screen. And yeah, well, if you are interested to test the chatbot, you can reach out and we will provide you with the demo access so you can try it as well. And we will very much appreciate your feedback on the chatbot.
We got another question here. Wow, we got a lot of questions. This is great. We have another one from another anonymous attendee, but they said, we are currently using Mnemonic in Australia, but not all of our documents are covered in the chatbot. Is this something that you are working on to cover all documents relevant to our jurisdiction?
Well, we started with Australia quite recently as a test project. And we started only with federal documents, federal level documents, and I guess they include also some documents from, I will say it correctly, from national. Let me just check so I will not make a mistake. From national Australian energy regulator, right? Yeah, so we are testing it right now just to see and also receive the customers' feedback. Uh, And based on this, we will proceed with other levels of legislation in Australia. So basically, this is the answer. If we receive your feedback, we understand this is something that is helpful, that provides value. We will for sure invest and expand our database. Luckily, Australian content is quite accessible one, so we can more or less easily add it to our database.
Yeah, and for the companies that we do work with in Australia, I know that we do have quite a few in the energy sector. So, in the instance that you are a customer that's outside of the energy sector, but are still in Australia, then definitely let us know too. You can contact us at support@Mnemonic, and kind of put that across, and we can push that forward for you as well, because obviously we do want to have these jurisdictions built out for our customers. So yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to contact us and we can get kind of the wheels rolling with that. Uh, so it doesn't look like there's any other questions right now. If anybody does have a question for maybe something they wanted to see in the chat bot, we can take a little bit of time here. I know we're coming up to time here pretty soon, so um, we'll give it a little bit here just to see if anybody else is coming up with any additional questions, but if not, then we can definitely close it off here. I'll just wait for another minute here to see. And thank you so much for all of the questions. That really, really does help us. Any feedback is good feedback for us. And I noticed as well, there's a lot of people answering the polls as well. So that's fantastic. Thank you for the engagement there. Perfect. We do have one more question here. Another anonymous attendee, but they mentioned, do you think that someday you would expand to uh, analyze or analysis of photographs? For example, inputting an image of an industrial lot next to a watercourse and a neighborhood and asking, does the placement of this equipment in the image below violate any laws or regulations? That's a really cool question.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really cool question. Overall, I mentioned that we are planning to allow users to add their own data to the chatbot. And we also are working on not trying, but also just implementing the AI to work and process images and PDFs and so on. So basically, this is a good thing that we will certainly put in our list of things to do. But yeah, I think it should be doable. And even like from what I at least know and my experience of using AI, it can be quite efficient with analyzing images and providing you the answer based on regulations.
Yeah, that was a really, really interesting question. I think that we'll definitely take a note of that. So yeah, so it doesn't look like we're getting any more questions in here. We're about 5 minutes away from the presentation, kind of coming up to time. So I think we're going to end this here. Um, we really appreciate you taking the time to attend this webinar with Yura and I. We'll be making sure to share the recording after it's finished processing. And if you think of any questions after the presentation or feel like, maybe a question that was asked and wasn't provided enough clarity, feel free to reach out to us. We have our support@mnemonic.com address there that you can find on our website. And yeah, you can just reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So for everybody who's still in here, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you so much for coming. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for your attention. Have a good day.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.